Hi guys, welcome to Chapter 7 of the Castor Saga. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen our first 6 videos, this is Chapter 7. You've been warned. Today's episode is going to be a little short because I didn't realize how short this chapter was. And I'm trying to keep myself to 1 chapter per video, because if I go over and read the next chapter in the same video, it's going to be like an hour-long video. So, we're just going to stick to 1 chapter per video. Sorry, this one's going to be short, but it'll be worth it. Chapter 7. The Forest of Light. Meli opened her eyes and sat looking around at all the other passengers on the train. She looked at Tony and smiled, then looked up at the conductor, whom was standing at the front of the car. Mr. Conductor, sir? What's in the train cars ahead of us?
The fuel for the train. It takes a lot to keep the train going.
I thought the train ran on magic. You know, the souls of the passengers.
It does. The problem is, with so few passengers and less people believing in magic these days, it takes a little extra to run the train.
So then, what's it running on? Where's the magic coming from? The conductor smiled softly at Meli for a moment, but didn't get to answering her question.
Maybe I'll tell you later, kiddo.
All right. The conductor was worried, and returned to his worried look as they stopped talking. As the conductor went to count his passengers again, the train lurched forward and roughly slid to a stop. The conductor walked up to the front of the train in a rage and shouted loudly at the engineer.
What in the little devil's garden is going on? Sorry to say it, sir, but it appears the train isn't being allowed to pass through the end of the gate to the Forest of Light. Unless we can resolve why, the Castors will have to...
Don't you even say it. If that happens, there's no way in hell they'd ever make it to the Garden of Lily. This is only the 5th gate. They'd have 7 more to go. They wouldn't last on their own, not all 13 of them, and we can't help them any as far as surviving, no more than is in our jurisdiction.
I know, sir, but I can't get her through. Maybe we should just try and just see if they make it over themselves?
No.
Sir, if they don't try, none of them will make it. And then there will be no train track casters for the next 20 years. It'll be a huge gap. They might disappear altogether.
The conductor nodded and reluctantly walked back to the car of passengers where they waited to see what was going on.
All right, I've got some bad news. The train is stuck. There appears to be a barrier between us and the Forest of Light, making it so that we can't get through at all. We need everyone to climb up on top of the train and walk down to the front of the engine.
All the young casters mumbled to themselves in a worried tone.
You'll all be fine. Just stay on the tracks, all right?
Finally, I get to stretch my legs and go for a hike. Meli stood up and started to stretch as Rose looked at her, then around at John, Keith, Eej, and Tony. Meli seemed entirely too comfortable with the situation, but the others took that as a sign of her feeling she could deal with it herself. I don't know about you guys, but I'm going with Melissa. Meli laughed in an innocently wicked way, and nodded as they all stood with her. Her laugh was kind of witchy, but in a sweet, would-never-hurt-a-fly kind of way.
Same. Ditto.
Well, let's go then, guys. Meli stood and they all followed her as everyone walked to the back of the train. A few people were nervous about stepping outside the train and were arguing about who would go first. I don't want to go first. You go first.
I'm not going first.
Meli walked past them all and just shrugged. I'll go first. She smiled and climbed up the ladder with Tony and her friends enthusiastically right behind her. The others all looked nervous, but followed them up on top of the train car. The conductor walked back through the cars up to the front of the train, and then stood on the very front as the others came down and jumped onto the tracks. The conductor was still on the train when he spoke. Now, you're all going to need to rely on each other to stay alive. Just keep following the tracks west, and you should eventually get to the Garden of Lily. One girl spoke up, sounding terrified. Wait, you're not coming with us?
The engineer and I are not allowed to leave the train.
Why not?
Remember how I said the magic that runs the train is in the cars ahead of the passenger cars?
Yeah? The conductor tried to step forward off the train, but the moment he did,
Several silver metal wires appeared holding him prisoner on the train. The magic comes from you? But how can you have that much? It doesn't matter. What matters is that you young casters get safely to the Garden of Lily. So to those of you who do not, I'm sorry. We have failed you. You didn't fail us, conductor. Thank you for all that you've done for us. Everyone looked up, waving to the conductor, and thanked him and the engineer for all they'd done. The conductor looked down at his son, making sure no one saw him staring. He just prayed he'd make it through alive. Meli turned to Tony and under her breath spoke softly. This is my fault. What? No, it's not. Yes, it is. Someone is out to get me, and now the train can't pass because of them, and... Melissa, calm down. None of this is your fault. And if someone really is trying to stop you, then we'll take care of it. Besides, this way we can practice our abilities on the way. In fact, we'll need to. Now come on. Those casters need a leader, and you seem to know what you're doing, so... Meli looked around them, and everyone seemed to be looking at her. Lead us. Meli nodded and turned looking down the tracks. She turned back around and looked at everyone with a smile. There's 13 of us left, and we don't even know each other's names. Let's introduce ourselves, and then we'll go through. I'm Melissa. I'm Anthony, but you can call me Tony. I'm Rose. I'm John. I'm Keith. I'm Age. The others looked kind of nervous, but they finally spoke after a moment of pause. I'm Crystal, but you can call me Chrissy. And I'm Alexis, but you can call me Allie. Chrissy and Allie were nature casters, and they wore brown like Melissa did. I'm Dawn. Dawn was Chrissy's partner, and was a shadow caster dressed in blue like Rose was. I'm Sam. I'm Ben. And I'm Jacob. Sam, Ben, and Jacob all wore black, and were shadow casters like Tony and Keith. And I'm Luke. Luke was Allie's partner, a nature caster, and was dressed in green like Age and John were. Well then, now that we're better acquainted, here we go. Meli walked up to the bright white barrier and reached out her hand to it. Her hand passed into the forest of light easily, and she looked back at the others with a smile. All right, we'll pass through. Everyone hold hands now. We won't be able to see in this forest, it's too bright. We have to close our eyes or risk going blind. Is that okay with everyone? Tony took Meli's hand, then reached out his hand to anyone who wanted to take it. How do we know you're not going to lead us the wrong way? That's a fair question. I guess you don't. That response startled them. But then Rose and Keith just left. Rose, John, Age, and Keith all grabbed onto each other, and Tony. Meli stepped through the wall of white, and as soon as people began passing through, the others grabbed onto the end of the chain. As soon as everyone entered, the conductor and engineer began rolling the train back towards the beginning, looking for a way around the forest. Perhaps they'd get through somewhere else, and reconnect with the young casters that way. Everyone inside the forest of light began complaining about the blinding brightness. Ah, I can't see! Oh, it hurts! Keep your eyes closed. You'll go blind. We just have to run. We just have to go. Come on. They began running down the tracks quickly, fleeing the bright lights of the forest. Around them, they couldn't see anything. Meli flashed her eyes to glow white, and as she did, she sent a flow of energy through to the others. Tony, Rose, John, and Age, and Keith's eyes all began to glow their colors as well, as they were forced open by the energy coming from their eyes. They couldn't see very well, but they could see the shadows of black, thin trees all around them. They could see just well enough to see the person in front of them. Behind Keith, the rest of the group began opening their eyes as different colors began erupting from their own. Chrissy had yellow eyes. Luke had orange eyes. Allie had green eyes. Dawn had pink eyes. Jacob had red eyes. And Ben and Sam had blue eyes. They were all scared and surprised by their eyes glowing, but when they could see a little bit, it was easier for them to follow the group through the blinding light and down the tracks. They heard footsteps around them, but didn't see anyone. Meli felt a hard slap across her face, and when Tony felt her jolt, he looked ahead and saw someone standing close to Meli. Meli, on your left! Meli took her free hand and swung on our left, but she missed her target by an inch. What's going on? Someone's after Meli. Who is it? I can't see. I couldn't tell. They were tall. Everyone stay close. Meli rushed everyone down the tracks, and a few moments later, they came out to the forest and were thrown into the gate between the Forest of Light and the Forest of Darkness. And that is the end of Chapter 7. Thank you very much for listening. Chapter 8 is going to be much longer. It should be coming out very, very soon, so you shouldn't have to wait very long for it. If you haven't already, subscribe below, hit that notification bell so that you know when I post the videos, and until next time, bye.